Namaste everyone and welcome. Today our discussion is about Saṃyama. Saṃyama means holding together or tying up or binding or integration. It is the practice of dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Mostly you can, like a literal translation, what I see from my study, it's the inward journey. It's more of the mind thing. Why it is a mind thing? Often when we meditate, we find very difficulties focusing on that one pointed concentration, that whatever the text says, and also the many types of meditation talks about choosing an object, choosing the idea, choosing the sound, choosing the mantra, or japam, anything. So, but we often may not focus. If you take it by Yoga Sutras Patanjali, Saṃyama mostly talks about the more psychological and also philosophical. But if you just touched on the Gita, it's more talks about, I would say in Gita, it's called Atma Saṃyama Yoga. Atma means the self or soul. Saṃyama means holding together. So yoga means the union. So in Gita, they more talk about devotion to the God. So by surrendering to the Krishna or the Ishvara, so there are two types within the Saṃyama Yoga. So if you just compare the Patanjali Yoga Sutra Saṃyama Yoga, it's more well arranged, it's very psychological, not so mysterious, pretty like clear and direct practice. You choose a one pointed focus, like you choose an object, a sound or anything he says, and then you focus on that and you sustain the concentration that, then it will become a meditation. And then finally you find that absorption samadhi. But if you come to the Gita, it's more of devotion to the God and surrender to the God. So it depends, are you theist or atheist? Either you have a believing in the Ishvara or the God, or lack of experience of having an understanding about or believing towards the God, or less, like how to say, lacking experience, I would say. I'm not saying you don't believe the God. Anyways, Saṃyama Yoga, Atma Saṃyama Yoga. Mostly if you combine them together, they kind of shows a similar meaning, and it has a common idea. If you look at, for example, Gita, where you see the picture behind me, it's in the battlefield where Arjuna was collapsed and can't continue, but because he's grieving and he has these attachments and aversions and feelings, thoughts and emotion, and the mind is so disturbed that he doesn't want to move forward and continue. But what Krishna says, Atma, he talks about the self, knowing the self. So it is a kind of, I would say, read chapter 6 in Bhagavad Gita, which talks about Dhyana Yoga. You can see this book now here. Or I can suggest you one more by Ekanadishwara. These are good translations. If you want to understand more with the proper shlokas and verses, that you want to really go through the complete chapter 6, which talks about the practice of meditation. And you can say Dhyana Yoga. Back to our topics. So Arjuna was literally collapsed and he find very difficult to move forward. And if you take this situation, often in your life, you might feel stuck. Something is not clear from your past, or you're not sure about the future. Or maybe you pulling away by, let's say I would say, by this attachments and also your actions and egoism and also this other impurities and so on. If you read the Atma Saṃyama Yoga, why it is so important for you to follow this inward journey, to understand the mind. And also based on the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, why it is direct, simple, and clear. So the practice, you have to choose. There are two ways. One, either you choose one pointed concentration as dharana, and when you stay with that object, it became this a sustained practice or sustained concentration, became a meditation called dhyana. And then, as these two go together, and the final step is samadhi. Object, thought, or an idea, or a sound. But if you take Atma Saṃyama Yoga in the Gita, it is about whatever the actions are you doing, you're not expecting the outcome in written or not expecting the fruits of action. You're leaving to the Ishvara, or the Krishna, you would say, or Shiva, God, whoever the God you believe in. As I said, it's about, are you theist or atheist? So these two matters. But in a yogic way, if we come to the main point, the yogic way, the yogi, he wants to create balance. So that's why the Saṃyama, I found it very interesting topic that I'm here to share towards, like, when you deal a certain, let's say, something holds you back, for example, the point is, what are you holding? Or the question is, what are you holding? And where it's coming from? And is it necessary? We need to find that. I know it's very psychological or something, but the whole point is to self-restrain and to have that self-control. Yogi, I mean, not every yogi has a self-control. Often I found it also from my experience. I mean, it's hard for me to focus on one thing. But after reading the scriptures and studying more of this Upanishad and Yoga Sutras and also Bhagavad Puranas, I felt like these stories that people have written, although it does seem sometimes esoteric way of writing, but I found it's quite practical. Krishna said to Arjuna, you must continue, whatever it takes. Because he's a Kshatriya. Because this is Dharma. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. That is the first line in Gita. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. Dharma, the righteousness. The war itself is a right thing. So, in the field that he's in, represents the Dharma. And he has to do karma. But I don't know what field are you in. When you find often you feel that you get stuck or you feel emotionally, thrown away somewhere or feel stuck, I think the greatest tool is to practice meditation, I would say. And I highly recommend those who are watching this video or followed my videos previously based on the Ashtanga Yoga, there is a ways to find samadhi. And also I highly suggest to read some Yoga Sutras by Patanjali by different translators and commentators. It might be very helpful. So once again, yoga is just not a physical thing. It is about mind too. Yoga, it means union of the body, mind and soul. But often we see people just do the practice with the body now. Yes, it is one of the part. I'm not saying that. That's a third component. It's called a third ranga. It's called asana. That which is sturdy, that which is comfortable is asana. When you firm that, and one more thing I would like to mention, as you firm your asana, the pratyahara is the most important thing. For example, I would say, let's say you're in a forest and you're following a certain stream or river or water. And it cuts through, it goes through everywhere. If you notice, it goes to the creeks here, and crashes, go down and all. So the energy is flowing everywhere. And after some time, it might be staggered. But if you bring, let's say, if you're that waterfall, you bring all the energy in center and you create a certain dam. and the energy flows in one pointed direction, like the water dams. If you see anywhere in the world, like huge water dams, and why they let the water flow in one direction? To create power, to create many things. And also water that has an amount of force which is unbreakable and unshakable. So the yogi should not be shaken by this reality or whatever you're facing while you're meditating or anything. You have to have that sustained, like I showed you earlier, pouring that oil. It doesn't break. So your concentration should be on that one thing, whatever the meditation you're practicing. That dharana, pratyahara is the most, it's like the base, it's like you built a certain wall, either inward or outward. It depends what object you're choosing it. And then you move on, and when it stays that direction or that direction or that direction, it became as all these three components like holding together. And that became Saṃyama. So I would like to share from the third chapter. It's a Yoga Sutra. It's called Trayam Ekatra Saṃyamaha. Means these three together, which is dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, is the constitute integration, or it's Saṃyama. So it is very important for you to understand, the Ashtanga Yoga speaks about the individual self only, and Gita, it talks about, it believes this existence of both individual self and the supreme self, and emphasizes the importance of the devotion to the God. So once again, anywhere you're in a position, I would say you must continue to move forward. Whatever it stops you, don't let it stop. You must continue. And what happens when you all hold together, it became this wonderful, beautiful wisdom that you carry in your mind. This based on ancient texts, lotus represents the wisdom. And lotus born from this mud, deep roots now, but it blooms. So growing from inside, that's why it's an inward journey. So the yogi must go from inside and not to be disturbed or shaken by all this, whatever happening from this material world or from this reality. And I would say the purpose of Atma Saṃyama Yoga is twofold. Firstly, it is to overcome, for example, overcome this instability and your attachments, and also delusions and egoism and such like many aversions, hatred, jealousy, anger. You must overcome these emotions in order to have that sustained concentration on one thing. And secondly, it is an integrate the mind and body with the self-achieve oneness and liberation. I would say Saṃyama, although may sound it's so easier, but sometimes, when we born like very pure, right? So why not we can go back to going backwards. So that's why it's like this inward journey to understand ourselves more, to find that one-pointed focus. When you reach that one-pointed focus, like the musician, when often play that, sometimes you may hear the music, you see the person, but it sounds like you don't know you want to see the person or you want to listen to the music. It became like a one object, and that's samadhi. That absorption comes when you sustain as long or as you can. Sometimes, as I said, you don't even know the time. Often our mind is like past, future, past, future, past, future, and it never stays in the present. It's like the pendulum, tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. You can go back to your past as a reference, like a library, and you learn from it. And the future is like, this reference can be used for the future improvements. So there are many ways we can interpret this yogic text, this yoga inspiration, and apply into your life, and to have that one-pointed focus towards this inward journey, to holding together, integration, Saṃyama. The main point is, I would say, I think discipline is the root for the spiritual, and I would say like this spiritual progress. Discipline is the root, and without discipline, I think it's very hard for us to control ourselves, control the senses, pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses. Self-discipline is the key to seek for the spiritual growth. I would say, often your spiritual awakening will happen when you're in a disaster, or you have like this emotional breakdown, or you wake up by something, and that is calling. When you stand up in that point or that situation that you wake up, I think you would grow much more stronger than earlier as you were or as you are now. So that opportunity has to create with a self-discipline. It is the root. So I would say this self-discipline, like tapas, austerity, and self-study, swadhyaya, and Ishvara pranidhana, means surrender to God or let go, or devotion to God. This is also Kriya Yoga. And Saṃyama Yoga is dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So there are many ways in Ashtanga Yoga they can interpret to give you some, I won't say it's a shortcuts. I would say, I think you must know them if you're practicing yoga. The philosophy is so beautiful that you can apply not just into your yoga mat, off the mat. I would say yoga off the mat. Often many of these people use this line. I'm just saying like yoga off the mat. So you're like holding together. So that's the whole point of having this inward journey, understanding about Saṃyama. And often it's say like, the longest journey is the inward journey. The longest journey is the inward journey. And spirituality is not a destination. It is also an inner journey. I hope you find this topic quite helpful for you. And the most important thing is, based on the Patanjali, he says, find a guru who can lead you, a trustful teacher, and gives you this step to improve your focus, a bona fide guru. But if you come to Atma Saṃyama Yoga, surrender to the Ishvara, like you're not expecting anything written, you're just following. So that creates the self and the Supreme Self as one, and you're holding together. Once again, the question is, which background are you coming from? Or are you atheist or theist? So either believe in a God or you're not believing in a God. But right, the whole point is to have that one-pointed focus. Once again, the longest journey is the inward journey. So now you go and do your practice. I hope this talk is helpful. If you like the video, please thumbs up and subscribe and share. And I will see you in the next topic. For now, I would say thank you and namaste. Hari Om Tat Sat. Bye for now.